I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code Dateable. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code Dateable and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine.
The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of Brunch Talk by the Dateable podcast, where we're going to dig into some of the questions that you all have been sending in, and we finally have the time and space to answer those questions. So let's start with our first one. You ready for this, Julie?
Oh yeah, this is a meaty brunch topic if you've had one.
Yeah, get those mimosas ready, guys.
I've been at so many brunches where this pops up.
What do I do when they don't text back and I freak out? To just give a little bit of background, when they don't get text back within 3 to 4 hours of me texting them, I tend to freak out and make up stories in my head. How do I stop doing that?
Oh my God. How many times have you shared that text thread at the brunch table asking what's going on?
30 million times. Everyone texts so differently. Some people are glued to their phones. Some people tend to turn off their phones during the day sometimes. I know that's a rare breed, but it does happen. The way we interpret text is that we think the minute we send that text, the other person's gotten it.
Yes.
So for some reason, we make up the story that they're just intentionally staring at your text and going, I'm going to wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait a little bit. And that's not exactly the right way to think about this because you have no control of when and how they receive the text. You could send the text and maybe they're, I don't know, in the shower, on the toilet, or they're at work and they see it 5 hours later. You don't know. Ultimately, we can only control how we control this situation, like how we act and how we feel. We cannot control how other people are going to text us. So one thing to think about is to get ahead of it. Know that you do get anxious if you don't get a text back within 3 to 4 hours. Then ask a question in your text that has some sort of urgency. You know, can you text me back within the next few hours? I like to know this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of the small talk over text because I can guarantee you small talk doesn't garner immediate response. No,
Right.
Hey, hope you're having a great day. Well, I don't need to reply to that text because it has no sense of urgency. Also know that if you are really into someone and this anxious tendency pops up is you can say it to them in early dating, even on a first date. I really enjoyed our time together. Just so you know, I get a little anxious if the texting doesn't come back right away. I really appreciate it if, you can just keep me updated over text. And then it brings up a conversation with your partner of how they like to text and how they view it. So keep this open mind of how people text and also know that you can only control yourself. You cannot control other people's behavior. behavior.
I mean, this was my biggest source of anxiety when I was dating, hands down. And I mean, I definitely remember having that conversation with my now partner about, my one thing is texting. Like, this is what gives me anxiety. And, I think it's like, it feels like that could be super daunting to have that conversation with someone you barely know and that you're going to come off needy and all of that. But I think remembering that, one, you want to be with someone that you feel secure with. And if someone can't meet you where you are, and I think there's also a big difference of, needing a zillion things versus like, this is my one thing, that's a different situation. And it can open up for them to share what is it that they need from you that will make them feel secure about this. And I think you can even say like, this is something I've just realized from dating, not putting blame on them. I think that's why it's good to have that convo before it becomes a problem, because it's not about something that they've done wrong.
Right. Get ahead of it.
We often read into the significance of text, and everyone is a little bit different with the way they text, which is why this is such a big hot topic early on in dating, because we don't know these people that well and how they actually text and what it actually means. We're just using the rules that we're kind of, that are thrown out there in modern dating culture around texting.
Yes.
And one thing that you can do is say, fuck it, like to these like, gendered roles, or even like they texted me last, or whatever the dynamic in your head is saying that they should be the next person to text. I personally would like to be put out of my misery. So I'm like, I'm just going to text them. And I would rather find out if they just aren't interested. If they aren't, then I can move on. And hopefully they still are. And it's just a story I've been making up in my mind. I just think sometimes like we can spend hours ruminating on something when you could just take an action and then you could be done with it. But again, that's up to you. I think some people view that very differently. Like I could see the feedback being like, but now I'm the one that has to make all the moves.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case either. Like if you send one extra text, that doesn't mean that you're like the only one that has to initiate everything. Right. It's more just getting out of your own way to do it. But the other option is, if you don't want to do that, take a walk around the block. Like get away from your phone. I swear sitting watching that phone is the death of anyone. Like just waiting for that bubble to pop up. I've been there.
Gosh.
I'm saying it as someone that has been staring at their phone before.
I bought an adult coloring book purely for this reason. I had to control my anxiety. So in between texts, I would be coloring in this coloring book, just having the time pass. That is just really sad. But that was just my way of managing it. I think something that is so important to bring up is what you want to avoid is to be like an us versus them mentality, where if they don't text you back in 4 hours, then you wait 4 hours to text them back. Then in that scenario, you end up sending one text a day because you're just waiting 8 hours in between texts. This is what, we've coined this relationship chicken. If you are looking for a relationship, stop doing the things that are getting you out of being in a relationship and lean into that relationship. So don't try to do like the whole defensive thing of, oh no, I'm going to wait a few hours before texting them back. That's playing games, and that never gets you anywhere.
It's so fascinating because I'm just speaking as a hetero woman because that's what Yue and I are. We've dealt with this, but I think so many times we're like waiting for, you want to feel pursued. You want to feel like someone's making all the moves. And I think this can actually go for non-hetero women too, is like you always want to feel like the person's into it, or what's the point in actually pursuing this? But actually many, especially in modern times, the desire is to have more of an equal relationship once you're actually in the relationship. So it's such a paradox that you're expecting this person to like stop the world and pursue you. But when you actually are in a relationship, it almost doesn't matter who's doing what. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like shifting to that mentality at the beginning is actually going to set you up for the relationship you want. So it's less about thinking like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, I'm not playing by the rules, and all the stuff that we've been told for years that you're supposed to do to like get someone to be interested in you. Again, for me personally, the second I I just became more authentic with people and dating is when like I actually had meaningful relationships. When I was playing all these like, oh, I can't text them first rules, nothing went anywhere. And it was what you were just saying, Yue. It's like nothing got off the ground because both parties are like sitting in this like game mentality.
Yeah, it's stalemate. And then who's going to move the chess piece forward? Nobody, because all you're trying to do is move back, hoping the other person steps forward and chases you. If you don't make an effort, how is someone else going to chase you back? It doesn't really make much sense. And so many times, to me, so this is like an example that I always think about is, so I was dating this guy for a little bit and I was really into him and I sent him a text asking him what he was doing on Saturday. He never texted me back and I played the cool girl of like, I don't need to hear from him. It's fine. It's over. I run into him at a bar a week later. And I confront him. I was like, hey, how come you didn't text me back? And he was like, I lost my phone. I'm so sorry. I didn't text you back. I never got the text message. In my head, that was like such a movie moment of like, oh my gosh, we're going to be together because it was just a missing phone and now we're okay. Turns out in a relationship, that guy lost his phone all the fucking time because he was not a responsible man. He did not have his life together. And I was like, wait, hold on a minute. This is not the romantic story I was looking for because it is indicative of the behavior in a relationship, right? So in the beginning of a relationship, stop trying to think about ways to make it more romantic or make it like that meet cute story. It doesn't happen like that. Everything should be indicative of what it will be like in a relationship. So keep asking yourself, would I be okay with this in a relationship? Would I be doing this in a relationship? Most of the time, you probably wouldn't be.
That's so fascinating. That made me think of something too. It's like, okay, so this is maybe the exception, but it's happened to me on multiple times, primarily with WhatsApp, is that I don't actually get the message that someone sent me, or they sent me a message, or I sent them a message and they never received it. You know, I don't want people to hang on like, that's the reason they're not messaging me back, but it could happen. I got to a point that I'm like, I'd rather just know than have these what if moments. For yours, for instance, you would not have ever known this if you hadn't have run into him, which doesn't always happen. So for me, it was always like, well, I'd rather just send them another message at that point. And then either be pleasantly surprised that there was, you know, a mishap that happened, or just learn that they're not that into me and I can move on. Like, I think we're so scared to like get that news. Is that news really worse? I think getting out of your own misery is the best thing that can happen, so you can then focus on someone that will text you back right away, or that there was just a misunderstanding and they fully intend on seeing you.
How many of you have done this? You match with someone on a dating app, you start texting, and then you don't hear from them, and then you check their profile on the dating app to see where they are geographically, right? How many miles are away from you? And then you start making up these stories. They must be on a date. They must be out having fun or drinking. That is what Julie was saying. It's like creating that misery in your head, making up these stories that may or may not be true. It doesn't really matter because you are not witnessing it. You're just making it up in your head. The faster you can address the story in your head and just truncate that story versus like letting it play out forever and ever, because then you start seeing their miles get closer to you. Like, wait, now they're 2 miles away from me. They must be at that bar down the street, right? You don't want that. You're going to drive yourself nuts. You got to nip that story in the bud and be like, stop with the imaginary stories.
Oh my God, that totally made me think of that time. You know the time I'm referencing.
Oh, yes. I will always remember the time.
Some of you might have heard this story before, but I'm going to share it again for all the newbies or for anyone that forgot it. But there was this infamous time that, you know, I had this situation happen. I'm having this back and forth convo with someone that I had a really great date with. We had the next date lined up. And then I sent a text, how was your weekend? Or something, you know, that was warranted a reply, but also wasn't super urgent. Never got anything back.
Yep.
So then, I don't know, maybe 2 days later, I threw another text. Because we did have like a day set up for plans. So I'm just kind of like, oh, like, what are you thinking about for Thursday? Nothing again. So then Yue went into full investigative mode, created a fake profile. I'll let you take it from here because you love this part of the story.
I'm just so proud of myself. I will offer this as a service one of these days. I am the original catfish king. I created this fake profile. I had photoshopped a photo that of a girl that does not exist. She's like a combination of few girls I know. And I made her into this profile where I think many people would be interested. And it was true. Many people matched with her, including said protagonist in this story. And we matched. So I thought I would just catch him, like set up a date with him and not show up. And he ghosted me too. He ghosted this fake
But he did talk to you.
He did talk to me.
So we knew he was alive. Because I was like, at what point? I hit a point like, did something happen to this guy?
Yes. And we saw the miles go farther away because he lived in Oakland, and then it came back closer to San Francisco. So we knew he was moving around, okay? He was going to work. And he was going home. But it just boggled our minds why he couldn't just pick up the phone and text Julie back. But was it worth our time? Probably not. But it made for a fun story.
Well,
but Julie, you should update people on what is the final update.
Okay, before I go into the update, because this is like a little ghosting, but I do think it was worth the time because I could have sat and questioned what happened
right.
for months, right?
Yeah.
But I sent him another message on Thursday being like, well, I guess this isn't happening, and, people have, again, varying levels of how much they want to call someone out when they're not responding to them. For me, I always think about like what is actually going to serve me the best. So instead of thinking about like, oh, they're going to think I'm like pathetic or I'm needy or I'm desperate because I keep messaging them, I want to do whatever is going to give me the most closure so I can move the fuck on.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And I don't view it as being needy and desperate if you're putting yourself first in this. And like they're the ones that are ignoring you when you've been having a conversation. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So that's the first part. But what we did realize is that this guy is now engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that he had a girlfriend like slightly after this whole thing. So a lot of times when this does happen, there's a reason, like there's someone else in the picture. Again, with early dating, it could just be that they're a freaking bad texter, or it could be that they're just unsure of either you or their situation or where they're going or whatever it may be. And it's never fully personal because you just don't know where this other person is at. So he definitely was dating someone else, but a good communicator could have still just been like, hey, things changed.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's all we needed.
Yeah. So lesson learned from this, the more you can get out of your own misery, the better, the faster. And sometimes it's a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's them just being afraid to tell you the truth. But either way is going to benefit you if you can learn that faster.
Yes. And no matter what is going on in their mind, whether they're not into you or they're just a bad communicator, you will be doing yourself a favor if you can take the situation into your own hands, be proactive, get in front of it, and preempt the whole anxiety situation. Like just say in the very beginning, I know I have a tendency to get anxious if the texting becomes sparse or I don't hear back from you within a few hours. Just so you know, okay? I'd rather you just let me know, keep me updated. So when you set someone up for success, and if they still fail, then you have your answer.
I feel like the rules in game playing is what fucked us. I think it's just like, how do we just be direct and authentic? And it's all how you say things.
Yeah.
If you're accusing someone of not texting you back and being an asshole, that's very different than just being like, hey, I thought we had plans. Like, let me know either way.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Why is that so hard? It's not.
Or I've been really enjoying hanging out with you and, just wanted to see if you're still up to do this on X day or whatever.
Yeah.
You're not desperate. You're not needy.
You're communicating.
Yes.
That's all you're doing. And if they can't meet you, then you have your answer because that's indicative of their behavior in a relationship too. They're not going to be responsive to you. So you just dodged your own bullet. There you go.
I definitely moved to a different mindset of like, do I want to just be able to text my partner whenever the fuck I want to?
Exactly.
And the answer is yes. So
yes.
It's a great filtering mechanism, especially again with hetero women. We've been told to lean back and not text first. If the guy is going to be turned off that I texted them, then I don't want to be with that person.
Yeah.
Because they should be freaking ecstatic that you texted them.
Exactly. So get the fuck out.
Anyways, hope you all are having fun at your own brunches, dissecting the texts. Hopefully you could share this before you head out to brunch if you haven't yet. Share it with your friends. That's always the best way to get the gospel out that there are no freaking rules anymore. And just take take control of your love life. That's all.
Yes.
That's the best way.
Don't share the text, share this episode instead. That's a much better share.
And if you didn't listen to last week's episode all about anxiety with dating, I feel like there's so many nuggets in that one that pretty much correlate to this topic.
Yes, such a great episode for anxiety. All right, we'll see you all back next Sunday for another episode of Brunch Talk.
The Dateable podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.
Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @Dateable Podcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all of those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.